Hello, tubers! Another short vid audio with no award-winning slideshow coming to you from Pat Jordan in the heart of the grain ghetto of Illinois. If you realize one thing, that we are stuck in a shithole infested with parasites, then the rule of the day is death and destruction, not life and growth. Microbes live on death. Let that sink in for a while. Clint Richardson fell across a word, geophagy. The implication is that the world as we know it is a push-pull game of Pac-Man where plants eat dirt, cows eat plants, man eats cows, and Conqueror Worm eats them all. No shit. Even plants are plagued by nematodes. You would know that if you were a gardener. I just found out that asparagus juice, when it's been cooked, has anti-nematode properties, so they say save your cooking water and pour it on your garden. What it seems like is that nature generates this lush bloom of fractal growth only to have Stephen King's Langoliers gobbling it up as soon as they rise. If you're mobile like a rabbit or a man, you might be able to run away from a predator. If you're a plant or a hypno-ape under the thrall of being fed GMO doof, drinking fluoride, and electronically mind-cuffed with EMFMK, then you lack even the capacity to run the fuck away from the lion or the worm within. Geophagy. The earth spawns and then exterminates what it spawns. In the TV series Angel, there was this awesome quote from Illyria to Angel. Do you know what you were when I was young? You were the muck at our feet. We called you the ooze that eats itself. You were pretty at night. You sparkled and you stank. You still stink of it. Since this is part of my short video audio only series, I will now get to the point. The hygiene hypothesis is that in modern times man has become so clean that the immune system is no longer stimulated to perform functions that it would have in the past ages. This is a patent fucking Yehudi lie up there with God, the Easter Bunny, and Santa. It's goddamned impossible to cohabit with pet animals, as 80% of North American population does, and not be exposed to the full range of pathogens that modern medicine doesn't even have tests for. So, before we get to particulars, why would a race of fuckers that lie as easily as they breathe say something like this? Because they are filth. They are degradation. They are death. If you convince your herd animals that dirt and filth and corruption and death that feeds their internal bug is the norm, then disease and despair will become the new normal. The goyim are considered lower than animals. Now slap yourself in the face and face it. They feed feces and sheep's brains and peppermint candy in the plastic wrapper to cattle that they worship because it breeds their god. If they treat the animal vessel of their god that way, then why wouldn't they treat you with even more contempt? And they do. I'm just making a rhetorical point to kick you in the ass with my steel-toed stickman boots. Let's get to the particulars and worm our way out of this. I saw Quack Watch Barrett and a minion on Tony Brown's Journal on PBS berate Hoda Clark's position that humans could have dog heartworm. Tony was promoting Hoda's work, so NPR probably forced him to give the dissenting opinion. But it wasn't dissent, and it wasn't even a goddamn opinion. I've since heard that Barrett was in prison for his asshole nonsense. What do you call 1,000 lawyers in the bottom of the ocean? A good start. Where's Offit and the rest in all this? Lies are the norm, and liars are celebrated unless they have to throw one of them under the bus. It wasn't dissent and it wasn't an opinion because, as I wrote in a handwritten letter directly to Tony Brown, you only have to consult the Merck Medical Manual to find dirofilaria, also known as visceral larval migrans, is dog heartworm in humans. What this means is anyone can be bitten by a mosquito that transmits dog heartworm to a human. Since the worm is programmed to seek out canine DNA, it will literally crawl through human flesh for 7 years before the fucker dies of boredom because it never found a dog heart. Talk about a 7-year itch. Jesus. Talk about delusional parasitosis. That is a damning label that the Yehoods who created Morgellons hammered onto the victims to keep everyone off the trail that they infected all of us with that military weapon. So the, quote, experts deny what is already codified in their books. Why wouldn't they? I already proved in 2010 that all medical institutions are military installations. Now, if this is the first time you've heard that, and it shouldn't be if you followed my work, then their job is pretty well accomplished because it is the bug inside the madmen assisting the bug in everyone else to hide in plain sight because, as I said, I went to the goddamn primary source material, the fucking Bible of medicine, the Merck Medical Manual, to show that Barrett and his devil spawn were not only lying, but they were so incompetent as to not only lose what licenses they have, but any stake in society. They were covering for the worms. But it gets worse. Can it? Okay, maybe not, but it remains just as bad. So some college fuck, as instructed by his MK controller, to write a paper that perhaps we are seeing Crohn's, asthma, and other nasty diseases because we, who's this we shit white coat, are too clean. I don't know about you, but I grow my own food, so I'm in the dirt and the dirt is in me. There was a time when I was so ill from a plugged liver and chemical allergies that I had to wear exam gloves and a mask just to plant my fucking garden. Why? Well, again, if you read my book, Human Beings, you would know that the average population beneath a square meter of meadow soil includes 100 million protozoa, 10 million free-living nematodes, 100,000 ori-batted beetle mites. What does this mean to a city dweller? Well, dirt is everywhere, isn't it? Why would a city dweller be exempt from whatever is blowing in from the country? I mean, if exotic bacteria can ride the current blowing across the Atlantic from the coast of Africa to the Caribbean to give them upper respiratory disease, then what makes you think you're exempt from what Hoda Clark said, that you simply have to breathe in a mote of dust to get a tapeworm egg? If you dig in the dirt like me, then the 100,000 beetle mites per meter love to eat tapeworm eggs. So the pattern of geophagy, where I grow plants to eat and in turning the dirt I expose myself, I swear I didn't pull my pants down, to a mite that ate a tapeworm egg, then Bob's my uncle and something wicked this way comes. That's just the dirt. But then pets are out in the dirt and breathing air, well, last time I checked, so they would be magnitudes higher at risk than those hygienic humans. So if little Fluffy has worms, then so do you, because there is no way you can prevent transmission. How many people let their dogs lick their asses, the dog's ass, and then their face, the owner's face? The other insanely aggravating Yehudi myth is that a dog's mouth is cleaner than a human's. This is just the bug protecting the bug by induced hypnosis of engineered consent. If every hypno-ape on the planet is reciting that nonsense while taking an anal kiss from their pet, then the bug lives undetected. Ever see your pet scoot its butt across the carpet? Worm sign. And I'm not talking the movie Dune. The hygiene hypothesis fails just from a practical look at the nature of nature, without needing to consult experts. So it's a lie. It's a dirty lie, if you will. So then what are they promoting? Disease. Why? The population of the world shouts, because it is too infantile to realize that I keep saying we are under planetary military occupation, and their weapons of choice are biological warfare agents called vaccines that cause nearly all the disease we see in the world. So they have to cover that fact by deflection, by saying it's your fault for being so clean. In a sense, it is. Humans have been selectively bred to be human animals that eat what is prepared for them. They don't grow their own food in the dirt, do they? And they do what their herd masters tell them, such as using hand sanitizer that has heart toxins in it. So in a sense, it is your fault for being so blind and gullible. But back to the worms. It's been demonstrated that Crohn's is caused by Mycobacterium avium paratuberculosis from commercial milk. They know it's in there. They are covering up for the fact, just like the Sarai witch cult, called the USDA, covers up prions in the meat supply. So what they tell you is some cocked up story that it's your fault that you are so clean, doing everything that they told you in the first place. Doesn't anyone ever catch that paradox? So you don't have enough worms in your gut to graze on a military-grade bacteria that they put in the milk supply. Milk is not food. It's not even doof, but we're talking worms here. So they say that you need nematodes to keep your biological warfare agent at bay. This is like giving everyone herpes virus 18 via the HELA, Henrietta Lacks cervical cancer cells in the polio shot, then saying that they came up with a new vaccine for herpes virus 18 that causes cervical warts. The pile of bodies that should be generated from these lies should be so high as to cause its own public health threat for the inability to bury or burn the fuckers fast enough. But this is their MO and always has been, yet it fascinates and disturbs me that only a farm boy gets it, let alone talks about it. The one-to-one analogy of getting a wart shot for being given warts by a shot is found in the topic of asthma. They cite that farm kids exposed to dust, back to dirt again, and pathogens on the farm have healthier lungs than city kids. Total bullshit and no substantiable statistics on that. I know lots of farm kids with asthma. Back in the day, the Yehuds said that asthma was a psychosomatic disorder that was corrected by circumcision. Would that apply to little girls too? Why everyone gets all their information from their enslavers and then repeats it as if it were benevolent advice of a friend also fascinates and disgusts me. But back to the worms. If you were a city kid with asthma, then the hygiene hypothesis would tell you that you needed a good dose of worms. Now, we already found that worms crawl through the body like a meter of meadow soil. So if you know the natural history of nematodes, you will be informed, fascinated, and disgusted. You might even incarcerate or terminate the authors of the hygiene hypothesis. A worm that typically resides in the human gut can migrate through tissue. It's not uncommon for them to penetrate from the bowel into the liver, get into the bloodstream, or just burrow through the diaphragm to worm their way, had to say that one, into the lungs, and then follow the kids' song.
The worms crawl in, the worms crawl in your stomach and out your mouth.
This larval migration is to help complete a life cycle in the host. Ever wonder why people grind their teeth at night? It's because the brain knows the little bastards are burrowing out of your lungs, crawling up your windpipe, down your esophagus, and then into your stomach. Ever wonder why kids with pinworms chew their fingernails to the quick? Oh, you know adults that do that too. Yeah, hygiene hypothesis, we're too fucking clean. Now, the thing about roundworms is that they put off a form of acetylcholine that mimics that of the host, so that while they are boring through you like Swiss cheese, you either do not take notice of it or it feels good. This is why the lying sons of bitches that promote the hygiene hypothesis say that your kids should get a nice dose of worms because it will ease their asthma. Now, asthma can come from other causes, but primarily it's from Junior being kissed on the face by a cat that licked its ass and the worms crawled through his lungs like really old furniture. As they crawl, they leave deadening chemicals so that the fuckers that hygiene hypothecate are not necessarily lying in that it will ease the asthma due to the paralyzing chemicals. But they are still worthy of summary execution for promoting horrific disease that caused the asthma in the first place to treat the asthma. But that was their pattern all along, wasn't it? Cause Parkinson's with vaccines and then say that you're working on a new vaccine to combat Parkinson's. The only thing with Parkinson's is the dumb fuck that roll up their sleeves for a football play in the form of a flu shot. That football play has not changed in many millennia. Hulda Clark said that parasites cause cancer. Was she a nut like Barrett said, or is there evidence in the mainstream medical system to support this? Helminthic infections mimicking malignancy. A review of published case reports. Pilzek, Journal of Infections in Developing Countries, 2010. Issue 4, pages 425 through 429. Infectious diseases can have an initial presentation similar to that of malignancy. For example, infection with actinomyces species bacteria cause infiltrative tissue growth similar to that seen in lung cancer, pelvic tumor, or colon cancer. Protozoal disease, for example, with Entamoeba histolytica, can involve the colon and cause ulceration of the mucosa similar to carcinoma. Viral infection with Epstein-Barr virus can cause proliferation of lymphocytes similar to T-cell leukemia, and fungal infection with Cryptococcus gattii can cause lesions similar to those of lung and brain cancer. Familiarity with infections presenting with features similar to malignancy is useful because infections initially diagnosed as malignancy and then managed and treated accordingly can lead to unnecessary interventions, including invasive procedures. Infections, however, are effectively treated with antibiotics, and early diagnosis will be beneficial. Therefore, this article focuses on helminthic infections and reviews published case reports of helminthic infections which were initially considered to be malignancies. So the hygiene hypothesists are pushing an agenda to trade Crohn's for cancer, asthma for cancer, anything for cancer, because you aren't dirty enough. Why would these sick yahoods and their minions do such a thing? It's more easily explained in the popular topic of toxoplasmosis, the single-celled parasite that lives in cat shit. A crazy cat lady is so affected by the bug that got into her brain that the bug now has control over her central nervous system. These parasites have had millions of years to perfect their craft, so they manipulate what has been falsely accused as being the most intelligent species on the planet, man, to then collect dozens of cats, then live in the filth with them, thus multiplying the load of parasites to biblical plague proportions. The bug drives the behavior of the host just like any zombie animal parasite. So when you are confronted with the hygiene hypothesis, its creators or its promoters, you can know instantly that you are not talking to a human, but with the bug within. Run the hell away.